Hi, I'm Beth, and this video is brought to you by Baby Lock. If you're quilting using your home sewing machine, using rulers can really help you get nice, consistent lines and shapes. Today, I'm sharing tips for using machine quilting rulers. First, you'll want a ruler foot. This foot has a higher side to guide along the edge of the ruler. There are two types of machines, high shank and low shank, so you'll want to check which your machine is before purchasing a ruler foot. And if you don't know, you can check with your sewing machine dealer. The Crescendo is a high shank machine, so we have our high shank foot. The diameter of this ruler foot is 1/2 inch, which means that the needle is always 1/4 inch away from the edge of the ruler. This is helpful to keep in mind when you're quilting, so you're getting the stitching where you want it. This foot is adjustable to account for different thicknesses of your quilts that you're quilting. You want the quilt to move freely under the foot, so it's helpful to place your quilt under the needle to adjust the foot to the right height before you begin. Next, you'll need some rulers. This 6-piece set from Baby Lock is a great starter kit, and it comes in either high shank or low shank versions to match your machine. So high shank are 1/4 inch thick, and low shank are 3/16 inch thick. You never want to use your regular acrylic cutting ruler though. It's thinner and it could slip underneath the foot, and then you could either potentially break the ruler and or your needle. There are a couple accessories that can help make your quilting with rulers a little easier too. So included in the starter set is some ruler grips, and these are just little stickers that you can put on the back side of your ruler, and that just helps get a little more grip on the fabric. There's also sprays that you can spray on the back of rulers, and some just have the grips built right in. Another thing that is helpful are machine quilting gloves, so those have a little grip and can get you a little more control over your ruler and your quilt. And one more thing is an extension table for your sewing machine. So I don't have one on my sewing machine, but this can help support your ruler and your quilt a little bit more. But one thing you can do if you don't have an extension table is you can move your machine all the way to the edge of your table. That way you have the whole surface of your table to help support that quilt. So basically what you're trying to do is just get that quilt up on top of the table. You don't want it dragging off the table. That makes it really hard to smoothly move your quilt underneath the needle. Once you're ready to stitch, be sure you're in the correct mode for free motion quilting and that your feed dogs are lowered. It's this button on the Crescendo. A good ruler to start with is a straight line ruler, and if it has another design, even better. This one is nice because it has a curve and a diagonal line on the other end. This allows you to make several different designs while getting the feel of holding the ruler and pushing the quilt at the same time. Grip the ruler and push down on it to hold it in place while pushing the quilt. And you always want to be in control of your quilt, so reposition your hands and ruler often. You don't want to get to a point where your hands are too far away from the needle. That's when you're going to get ruler slips and bobbles. Try using the ruler in both hands and on different sides of the foot to see what feels the most comfortable for you. So you want to move your hands at a steady rate with the machine. If you don't have a stitch regulator, your stitch length is determined by how fast or how slow you're moving your hands. So you can see here the difference between the stitches. The bottom line, the stitches are really far apart, so that means we're going a little too fast for the machine. And then the top line, the stitches are really close together, so that means we're moving too slow. So I have my quilt top under the needle and I want to do some stitching in the ditch. Now remember, the needle is actually 1/4 inch away from the edge of the foot, so you don't want to just line up your edge of your ruler with the edge of your seam, or your stitching is going to be inside the block and not where you want it. So these notches on the ruler, on the top and the bottom here, that's indicating where the stitching is actually going to land. So if you line that up with the seam, and then when you're running your foot along the ruler, then that ensures you're going to get the perfect placement. Okay, now let's try some little scallops in the border. Then when you stop with the needle down, just reposition the ruler to the other side. So that is a really fun design you can do with the same ruler. And if you'd like to fill in a little more space, you could offset the design on the next row. I don't have quite enough room to do that here, but if you use the registration marks on the ruler, you could line up the center line with the low point of the previous line of stitching, and then you'll have a really nice offset design. And of course, the biggest tip I can give you is just to practice. It takes a little bit of time to get used to moving your hands and your ruler and the quilt in time with your machine. Don't worry about the mistakes when you're first starting. I always think they look so noticeable when you're up close, but then when you step back, they blend in so much more. And of course, matching thread really covers a multitude of mistakes. So quilting with rulers is a really great way to get started free motion quilting on your home sewing machine. They act as training wheels and give you a guide to follow so you can get really consistent lines and shapes. So have fun quilting with rulers.